While they waited for news about the car, authorities got an even more promising lead. So a man named Jesse Perez called the station and said he believed he had met the Night Stalker. As soon as the tip came in, Frank Salerno sent a pair of officers to Jesse's house in East LA. He believed the Night Stalker was a guy named Rick, who Jesse had met at a bus depot earlier that month. Jesse had wanted to come forward sooner, but he had a criminal record himself and was worried about talking to the cops. Still, his daughter insisted he say something because there were a lot of similarities between the man he'd met and the descriptions the media had provided about the Night Stalker. This Rick was tall, with shaggy hair and terrible teeth, and he told Jesse that he was a burglar. Rick also talked a lot about Satan and admitted to Jesse that he'd done terrible things, like kill 2 Asian women in 1984.
Okay, so presuming this is Richard, why would Richard reveal himself like this? People underestimate how heavy the burden of secrets can be. Richard built his entire identity around his crimes and his allegiance to Satan, but identity is meaningless if it can't be shared. And he may have felt compelled to hint at the truth as a way to maintain that identity, not just for accountability, or not at all for accountability, but for recognition. He also saw himself as powerful, feared, and invincible, and someone like that would want the opportunity to boast when he could, and this is not uncommon for serial killers. But also, Richard was compulsive and risky, and telling Jesse was both of those things. It allowed him to test his limits and see how far he could go, or how far he could get to being discovered without actually facing any consequences.
Do you think that Richard potentially saw a kindred spirit in Jesse, who was also a former criminal?
Yeah. If a serial offender decides to confide in someone, the person they choose to do this with is very significant. It can tell us a lot. And I think to Richard, Jesse represented someone who had a similar moral code. Regardless of what Jesse was convicted of previously, they had a shared criminal identity, and this could have created a false sense of safety or a false sense of solidarity for Richard. And remember Richard's history with Miguel. Remember Miguel?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Miguel spoke to Richard in the same way. He boasted about his criminal acts and framed them as honorable. And in his interaction with Jesse, Richard is modeling that very same behavior that he learned from Miguel. It was the only way he knew how to socialize, and Jesse likely represented someone who would, quote, get it. And perhaps Richard thought that this would make him feel honorable in return in some way. Essentially, he's emulating Miguel.